The village was small and quiet, tucked away between gentle hills and a winding river. Life moved slowly there, almost like it was measured by the rhythm of the seasons. People woke up early to tend to their fields or go about their small businesses. Children ran through narrow lanes laughing and playing games that had been passed down for generations. The air smelled of fresh earth and blooming flowers, and the sun rose over the hills with a soft golden glow that made everything look peaceful. It was on one of those calm mornings that something unusual happened. A large wooden crate arrived in the village square. It was wrapped in burlap and tied with thick ropes. No one knew who had brought it or where it came from. People gathered around, whispering and pointing. Some thought it might be a gift for the mayor, while others guessed it could be supplies for one of the farms. But as they looked closer, they realized it was unlike anything they had seen before. The crate was heavy and tall, and when the ropes were untied, it revealed a grand piano. Its polished wood shone in the sunlight, reflecting the faces of the villagers who had come to see it. The piano seemed almost out of place in the simple village square, surrounded by stone houses and cobblestone streets. It looked like it belonged to a palace, not a small village that had never even had a music school. The villagers were silent for a moment, staring at it with a mix of awe and confusion. Some scratched their heads, wondering why anyone would leave such a beautiful instrument here. Others shrugged and walked away, thinking it was probably someone else's problem. But one young girl stayed. She had seen the piano from the moment it arrived, and something inside her stirred. She felt a strange excitement she could not explain. Her heart raced as she approached it, her hands trembling slightly. She circled the piano, touching its smooth surface gently. It was cold at first, but it felt alive, as if it were waiting for someone to play it. She had always loved music, even though she had never played an instrument before. Whenever she heard someone hum or whistle, she tried to copy the tunes, imagining herself playing a real piano. Now, here it was in front of her, and it seemed like the universe had given her a chance she never thought she would get. She pressed one of the keys lightly, and a soft, surprising note filled the air. The sound was unfamiliar yet beautiful, and it made her smile. She pressed another key, then another, and the sound became a tiny melody, almost accidental but full of wonder. The villagers nearby noticed her curiosity and gathered to watch. Some chuckled at the clumsy notes, while others were silent, unsure of how to react. The girl did not care. She was lost in the sound, in the way the piano responded to her touch. It was like a friend speaking to her, encouraging her to continue. Over the next few days, the girl spent every moment she could at the piano. She practiced pressing keys, learning which notes sounded high and which sounded low. She tried to create little tunes, sometimes getting frustrated when she could not make the sound she imagined. But she never gave up. Each day, more villagers came to see her. Some were curious, some skeptical, and some quietly impressed. They began to notice something changing in the air around the piano. There was a sense of magic, of something unusual bringing the village together in a way it had never been before. The girl's family watched with mixed feelings. They were proud of her courage but worried about the gossip and the villagers' opinions. Still, they supported her, bringing her water and encouraging her to continue. They could see how happy she was when she played, how her face lit up and how she seemed to forget all worries for a while. Slowly, they realized that the piano was doing more than teaching her music. It was giving her a sense of freedom and joy that the village rarely experienced. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, the girl stayed by the piano longer than usual. She pressed the keys softly, letting the sounds drift into the evening air. Some villagers walked by and paused, listening to the faint melody. Children tiptoed closer, enchanted by the music that seemed to come from nowhere. Even the elders, who rarely smiled at anything new, stopped for a moment, feeling a strange warmth in their hearts. The girl did not know she was affecting everyone, but the piano's notes carried her feelings outward, touching lives in ways she could not yet understand. The village had never seen anything like this. Every day, more people came to watch, to listen, and to wonder. The piano became a point of conversation, a reason for people to gather in the square. Strangers passing through the village would stop, curious about the music that floated through the streets. The girl, once quiet and shy, became the center of attention, not because she sought it, but because her passion could not be ignored. She started to realize that something extraordinary was happening. The piano had brought life and excitement to a village that had lived in quiet routine for so long. Even the animals seemed to notice. Birds would perch on nearby rooftops, chirping along with the notes. Cats and dogs would sit quietly nearby, listening as if they understood the music. The girl laughed sometimes at the idea, imagining the animals appreciating her tunes. But the more she played, the more she felt a connection to everything around her. The earth, the trees, the people, and the sky above. She was part of something bigger than herself, and it all began with the simple act of pressing a key. One day, the village elder, a kind but stern person who usually frowned at anything new, approached the girl. They listened quietly as she played a soft, uncertain melody. When she finished, the elder smiled faintly. It was the first sign of approval she had received from someone in authority. The elder said nothing at first, but their eyes twinkled, and they nodded. That small gesture meant more to the girl than words ever could. She felt encouraged to keep going, to explore the piano further, and to share her music with the village. As weeks passed, the girl's confidence grew. She experimented with different sounds, tried playing songs she remembered from childhood, and even made up little tunes of her own. Villagers who once doubted her began to appreciate her dedication. Children joined her, banging on the keys and learning the basics. A small community formed around the piano, united by curiosity, laughter, and music. The village square, once quiet and still, became alive with sound and energy. At night, the girl would often sit by the piano alone, thinking about the strange way it had come into her life. She wondered who had sent it and why, but she knew it did not matter. The piano had found her, and she had found it. Together, they were beginning a journey that would change not only her life, but the lives of everyone in the village. The piano was more than wood and strings. It was a symbol of possibility, of hope, and of the unexpected magic that could appear in the most ordinary places. And so, in that small village, where life had always moved slowly, a new story had begun. A piano had arrived, and a girl had discovered it. No one knew how far it would go or what changes it would bring, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Days passed since the piano appeared in the village, and the girl's fascination with it only grew stronger. Every morning, she rushed to the square, her small feet carrying her quickly along the familiar stone paths. She could hardly wait to touch the keys again, to feel the sound vibrate under her fingers and fill the quiet streets. At first, she only pressed the keys one by one, unsure of what would come out. The sounds were uneven, sometimes clashing, sometimes soft and sweet. But she did not stop. She wanted to learn, to understand how to make the piano sing like the music she had heard in her imagination. The villagers had begun to notice her daily routine. Some came closer, curious to see what she was doing. A few children, drawn by her laughter and excitement, tried to press the keys themselves. Their notes were messy, but their smiles were wide, and the girl encouraged them, showing them which keys to press. Adults stood at a distance, whispering to each other, some amused, some skeptical. They had never seen a child so absorbed in something that had no immediate use for farming or work. Yet something about her determination was hard to ignore. The girl spent hours at the piano, slowly learning to recognize the different sounds. She discovered that pressing the white keys produced lighter, softer notes, while the black keys had a deeper, more mysterious tone. She experimented, pressing them in different orders, trying to recreate the melodies she had hummed in secret when she was alone. At first, her attempts were simple, nothing more than short sequences of notes, but she felt a thrill every time a sound she imagined actually came out of the piano. Each small success made her heart race with joy. One morning, she noticed that the piano had a subtle echo, a lingering vibration that made the sound float across the square. She pressed a few keys gently, listening to the way the sound lingered, and then pressed them again in a slightly different order. The notes seemed to form a tiny song, soft and imperfect but magical in its own way. For a moment, she forgot everything else. The village, the people, the chores at home. It was just her and the piano, and the world seemed brighter than it had ever been. As the girl grew more confident, she began to play for longer periods. Her small fingers moved more easily across the keys, and she started to remember which notes sounded good together. She even tried to mimic songs she had heard on rare occasions from traveling musicians or on the old radio at her home. Each attempt was imperfect, but she improved bit by bit. The villagers who passed by could hear faint melodies emerging from the piano, and some of them paused to listen. Even those who were skeptical before began to notice that something remarkable was happening. Her family watched her transformation with pride and surprise. They had always known she had a love for music, but they never imagined she would have the chance to play a real piano, much less in the middle of the village. They encouraged her, bringing her snacks, helping her reach the higher keys, and cheering her on. The support made a difference. The girl felt that she was not alone in her journey. Her family was with her, even when she felt frustrated or tired. She began to understand that music was not just about notes. It was about connection, emotion, and sharing joy with others. The girl also began to notice how the villagers responded to her music. Children would gather around, some clapping to her small rhythms, others trying to hum along. Adults who were once indifferent now slowed their steps to listen, some smiling softly, some nodding with appreciation. Even the village elder, who had been stern and quiet, sometimes lingered to hear a tune. It was a subtle change, but one the girl noticed. Her music, even in its early, imperfect form, was bringing people together in a way that nothing else had. The piano had become more than just an instrument. It was a bridge, connecting hearts across the village. One afternoon, a gentle rain began to fall, and the girl did not let it stop her. She moved the piano under a small wooden canopy near the square, its polished surface now gleaming in the rain. She pressed the keys, listening to how the sound mingled with the soft patter of raindrops. The notes seemed even more magical, almost as if the rain itself was joining in her melody. Villagers watching from their doorways smiled and waved, feeling a quiet sense of wonder. That day, the girl realized that music could be shared not just in perfect weather, but in any moment, rain or shine, and it could still touch people's hearts. As the weeks went by, the girl's confidence continued to grow. She began creating her own short songs, small pieces of music that reflected what she felt inside. Sometimes they were cheerful and fast, like children playing in the sun. Sometimes they were soft and thoughtful, like the quiet moments she spent watching the river flow. Each song was a reflection of her emotions, and playing them gave her a sense of freedom she had never known. It was a feeling of control and creativity, a way to express herself when words were not enough. One evening, the girl noticed a new group of children approaching. They had heard about the piano from their friends and were curious to see it for themselves. She welcomed them, showing them how to press the keys and encouraging them to try. Their initial attempts were chaotic, but she laughed and clapped, making them feel proud of even the smallest successes. The piano became a place of learning and play, and the girl became a teacher without even realizing it. She discovered the joy of sharing her passion, seeing how music could inspire others just as it inspired her. The village, once quiet and predictable, was beginning to change in small but meaningful ways. People found themselves talking more, laughing more, and noticing things they had overlooked before. The piano had brought curiosity and life back to the streets. The girl's dedication reminded them of the beauty of discovery, of trying something new even when it seemed difficult. It was as if the piano had opened a door that had been closed for years, inviting the entire village to step through. Despite all the progress, the girl still faced challenges. Some villagers thought she spent too much time at the piano and not enough on chores or schoolwork. They questioned the usefulness of her new passion and sometimes spoke critically. At first, she felt discouraged, wondering if she should stop to please them. But when she played, the music reminded her why she loved it so much. The notes carried her hope and courage, giving her strength to continue. She realized that following her heart was worth the small criticisms, and that the joy she felt and shared was more important than approval from everyone. One day, a traveling musician passed through the village and heard the girl playing. The musician stopped, listening intently to the melody she had created. He smiled and praised her efforts, giving her tips and encouragement. He spoke of music in a way that made the girl's eyes shine, sharing stories of how music had changed lives in other towns and cities. For the first time, she felt that her dream could be bigger than she had imagined. The piano in the village square was no longer just a curiosity. It was a gateway to a world of possibilities. The girl continued to practice every day, learning from her mistakes and celebrating her successes. The piano had become a companion, a teacher, and a friend. It had taught her patience, determination, and the beauty of sharing with others. And the village, once quiet and predictable, had begun to awaken. Children laughed and played, adults stopped to listen, and even the grumpy elder could not resist a smile. The girl realized that music was not just about playing notes. It was about creating moments that brought people together, moments that could change lives. As the sun set over the village, the girl played one last song for the day. The notes floated through the square, soft and warm, carrying her emotions and thoughts. Villagers lingered, listening in silence, feeling a connection they had never felt before. The girl smiled, knowing that she had started something special, something that would grow and flourish with time. The piano had given her a purpose, a way to touch hearts, and a way to inspire change. And though she did not yet know how far it would go, she felt ready for the journey ahead, confident that music could create a brighter, more joyful world for everyone around her. The girl's connection with the piano continued to deepen. Each day, she played with more confidence, creating melodies that seemed to fill not just the village square, but the hearts of the people around her. Word of her music spread, and more villagers began to gather, curious to see the progress she had made. Children who had once hesitated to approach now ran to her side, eager to play along and learn the songs she had invented. Their laughter mixed with the soft notes of the piano, creating a harmony of sound and joy that the village had never known before. With each passing day, the girl's skills improved. She discovered that certain sequences of notes could evoke feelings of happiness, while others could bring calm and reflection. She experimented with rhythm, sometimes tapping her fingers quickly across the keys, other times pressing them slowly to let the sound linger. Every attempt, successful or not, was a lesson. The piano had become her teacher, guiding her through a journey of discovery that was as much about understanding herself as it was about music. Villagers began to notice subtle changes in their daily lives. People who had been quiet and reserved started to smile more, greeting each other as they passed in the streets. Children practiced singing simple tunes, sometimes joining the girl at the piano, while adults paused in their work to listen. The piano, once a mysterious object in the square, had become a symbol of life and energy, drawing the community together in ways that had never happened before. The girl, unaware of the impact she had made, continued to play with innocence and joy, letting the music speak for her. One afternoon, an older man approached her as she played. He had been a musician in his youth, traveling from town to town, but had settled in the village after many years. His hands were rough from years of work, but his eyes still held the spark of creativity. He listened silently, nodding to the rhythm of her playing, and then offered gentle advice. He showed her how to position her fingers for better control, how to let the notes flow naturally, and how to use pauses to create emotion in her music. The girl listened intently, absorbing every word and movement, grateful for the guidance. The man's encouragement gave her a new level of confidence and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, the girl began to experiment with longer melodies. She created small compositions that told stories without words, capturing moments of joy, sorrow, hope, and reflection. Villagers would gather to listen, their faces lighting up as they recognized the emotions behind each tune. The piano had become a storyteller, and the girl its voice. Even those who had doubted the importance of music in their lives began to see its value. The village was transforming, slowly but surely, as one girl's dedication inspired others to explore their own creativity. One evening, during a festival, the girl was asked to play for the villagers. The square was decorated with lanterns and flowers, and the air buzzed with anticipation. She felt nervous at first, but as her fingers touched the keys, the familiar comfort of the piano calmed her. She began to play, her music weaving through the crowd, touching hearts and drawing smiles. Children danced to the rhythms, elders nodded in approval, and even the shy villagers allowed themselves to be carried away by the melody. The girl realized that she was no longer playing just for herself. She was sharing a gift that could move others, bringing the village together in celebration. The piano also became a source of learning for the children. The girl took the time to teach them simple songs, showing them how to combine notes and create small pieces of music. Their excitement was contagious, and soon the village square was filled with young learners pressing keys, trying to mimic her tunes. Parents began to notice changes in their children, an increased sense of focus, creativity, and confidence. Music had become more than entertainment. It was shaping the next generation, teaching lessons that could not be found in books or chores. Challenges, however, were never far away. Some villagers still questioned the girl's dedication to the piano, worrying that she was neglecting other responsibilities. Rumors spread that she was wasting time on something frivolous, and whispers of disapproval reached her ears. At first, she felt the sting of criticism, doubting herself and wondering if she was doing the right thing. But the moments when people stopped to listen, the smiles she saw on children's faces, and the encouragement from the older musician reminded her why she could not stop. Her music mattered, and she knew it could create something beautiful for the village. The girl also faced personal challenges. There were times when her fingers ached, when she struggled to remember a sequence of notes, or when a melody she imagined refused to come out correctly. She would take a deep breath, close her eyes, and start again, learning the value of patience and persistence. Each struggle became a small victory, each mistake a lesson. The piano had taught her resilience, showing that even when things seemed difficult, perseverance could lead to progress. Over time, the village began to change in more profound ways. People started organizing small gatherings around the piano, sharing stories and laughter. The square, once quiet and empty for most of the day, became a place of connection and community. Neighbors who had barely spoken now exchanged greetings and encouraged each other's creativity. The girl's simple act of playing music had sparked a ripple effect, reminding everyone that joy could be found in unexpected places. One morning, a traveling musician returned to the village, having heard of the girl's talent. He brought with him a small collection of sheet music, rare in a village that had never had access to such things. He offered to teach the girl new techniques, to introduce her to different styles of music, and to help her expand her understanding of the piano. The girl was thrilled, absorbing every lesson with excitement and gratitude. Her skills continued to grow, and with each new melody she learned, she felt closer to the music and to the people who listened. The impact of the piano also reached the village elders, who had long held traditions and routines that resisted change. Even they could not ignore the joy that the girl's music brought. Some elders began to hum along with her tunes, tapping their feet to the rhythm. Others encouraged their grandchildren to join in, realizing that the piano had become a source of happiness and community bonding. The girl had unknowingly bridged generations, creating a shared experience that everyone could enjoy. The girl's journey was not just about learning music. It was about discovering the power of persistence, creativity, and connection. She realized that the piano had given her a voice, a way to communicate emotions that words could not capture. Through her playing, she learned to express joy, sadness, hope, and love. The villagers, in turn, learned to listen, not just to music but to each other, to the world around them, and to the possibilities that could emerge when one person followed their passion. As the seasons changed, the piano remained in the village square, a constant presence in the girl's life and in the hearts of the villagers. She continued to explore its sounds, create new melodies, and teach others. The village, once quiet and predictable, was alive with music and excitement. Children learned to play, adults discovered joy in simple notes, and the community came together in ways they had never imagined. One day, As the girl played a particularly heartfelt melody, she looked around at the faces of the villagers. She saw smiles, tears, and expressions of awe. She realized that her music had become more than a personal passion. It had become a force of change. The piano had shown her the power of perseverance, creativity, and sharing, and through her dedication, the village had been transformed. The girl understood that one person's courage to follow their heart could inspire a whole community, and she felt a quiet pride and fulfillment that words could never describe. The piano had started as a mysterious object in the square, but through the girl's love and dedication, it had become the heart of the village. It had brought together children and adults, strangers and elders, creating a sense of unity and hope that had been missing for so long. And as the girl continued to play, she knew that the journey was far from over. The piano was not just an instrument. It was a symbol of possibility, a reminder that one person's passion could spark change and bring joy to an entire community. The girl's music had become the heart of the village, filling the square with sound, laughter, and joy. Yet, even as she continued to improve, not everyone was happy about the changes. Some villagers believed that the piano was a distraction, that too much time was spent on music and not enough on work or school. Rumors began to spread that the girl was wasting her days, ignoring responsibilities. She heard whispers of disapproval and saw skeptical looks from people who had once ignored her. First, the doubt stung her. She wondered if she had made a mistake, if her passion was selfish or wrong. Despite the criticism, she continued to play. Each time she touched the keys, she reminded herself of the joy it brought to others and to herself. She remembered the children dancing to her tunes, the elders smiling, and the quiet moments when she could lose herself in the music. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a part of her life, a way to express her thoughts and feelings without words. She refused to let doubt or criticism take that away. One day, the elder who had once been stern and skeptical approached her. The elder had seen the changes in the village, the way children laughed more, the way neighbors began to connect, and the way music brought a new light into everyone's hearts. They spoke gently to the girl, explaining that not everyone would understand at first, but that her dedication was inspiring. They encouraged her to keep playing, to continue sharing her gift, and to let the music speak for itself. The elder's words gave her courage, reminding her that persistence in doing what was right could overcome resistance. With renewed determination, the girl spent even more time at the piano. She experimented with new sounds and rhythms, exploring melodies she had never tried before. She began to create small compositions that told stories. Stories of the village, of the river, of the children playing and the elders watching quietly. Her music captured the essence of everyday life, transforming ordinary moments into something extraordinary. Villagers would pause in their work to listen, feeling emotions they hadn't thought about in years. Some found themselves remembering their own childhoods, others felt hope for the future, and all were touched by the beauty of her melodies. The children continued to learn from her, pressing the keys with excitement and curiosity. They copied her movements, trying to recreate her tunes, and often created little songs of their own. The girl encouraged them, teaching patience and focus while also celebrating mistakes as opportunities to learn. The piano had become a place of discovery, not just for the girl, but for an entire generation of villagers. It was teaching them lessons about creativity, teamwork, and the joy of sharing something meaningful. As the girl's confidence grew, she began to take on challenges she had never imagined. She performed at small gatherings and village events, playing longer pieces and more complex compositions. Each performance was met with applause and smiles, and slowly, the skeptics began to see the value of her dedication. Some villagers even apologized for doubting her, realizing that the music had brought a sense of unity and happiness that no other activity could have created. The piano was no longer just a mysterious object. It was a symbol of hope, change, and inspiration. Despite the progress, obstacles continued to appear. One morning, a storm hit the village, heavy rain and strong winds shaking the square. The piano, although sturdy, was exposed, and the girl feared for its safety. She rushed to cover it and make sure it was protected, working tirelessly as the rain poured down. Some villagers helped her, realizing that the piano had become important not just to her, but to the entire community. The storm tested their commitment and resilience, and together they ensured that the instrument survived, ready to continue inspiring the village once the weather cleared. After the storm, the girl noticed that the piano's sound seemed even richer. She played a soft, reflective melody, thinking about the challenges they had overcome. Villagers gathered, impressed by how the music mirrored their collective experience. The struggle, the care, and the triumph. The piano had become a storyteller, not just for her, but for the whole community. Every note carried memories, emotions, and the journey they had shared together. The girl also began to notice her own growth. She was no longer afraid of making mistakes, and her fingers moved more fluidly across the keys. She could play longer pieces, creating melodies that were expressive and powerful. Her creativity expanded as she explored different styles and rhythms, and she began to teach more advanced techniques to the children and even to adults who were willing to learn. The piano had become a source of learning, inspiration, and connection, showing everyone that dedication and passion could transform lives. Word of her talent began to spread beyond the village. Travelers passing through stopped to hear her play, amazed at how a young girl in a small village could create such beautiful music. Some offered guidance, others simply listened and praised her skill. Each interaction gave her new ideas and motivation to continue exploring the piano's possibilities. She began to dream of performing beyond the village, sharing her music with people she had never met, and inspiring them just as she had inspired her own community. The village continued to change around her. Neighbors who had been distant now worked together more willingly, organizing small events around the piano. Children practiced diligently, learning the joy of patience and focus. Elders shared stories of their own experiences, connecting past and present through the shared love of music. The piano had become a central part of village life, a symbol of resilience, hope, and community spirit. The girl felt proud and humbled by the way her passion had grown into something that touched so many lives. Challenges were still present, but the girl had learned how to face them. Criticism no longer discouraged her. Instead, it became an opportunity to prove the value of her dedication. Physical fatigue, mistakes in her music, and even doubts about her abilities were met with persistence and practice. She understood that growth required effort, and that true change, whether in music or in life, was never easy. The piano had taught her lessons about patience, courage, and the power of following one's heart. One memorable afternoon, the girl organized a small concert in the village square. Children, adults, and elders all gathered, excited to hear the melodies she had composed. She performed a series of pieces, each one telling a story of the village, the people, and the experiences they had shared. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the music. Some wiped away tears, others smiled and clapped, and many felt a sense of unity and pride that had never been present before. The concert was not just a performance. It was a celebration of transformation, resilience, and community. The girl realized that the piano had become more than an instrument. It was a bridge connecting hearts and generations. It allowed people to communicate emotions they could not put into words. It brought joy, reflection, and inspiration, reminding everyone that even small acts of passion could create significant change. The village, once quiet and predictable, had been transformed by one girl's dedication, and the piano had been the instrument of that transformation. As the sun set that evening, casting a warm golden glow across the square, the girl played one last melody. The notes floated through the village, soft and soothing, carrying the story of their journey together. Villagers lingered, listening to the music, feeling connected and inspired. The girl smiled, understanding that the piano had taught her not only about music, but about life, perseverance, and the power of sharing one's passion with others. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them, confident that music could continue to change the village and touch the hearts of everyone who listened. The girl had come a long way since the first day she had touched the piano in the village square. Her music had grown stronger, more expressive, and had touched the lives of everyone around her. Villagers had learned to appreciate the beauty of her melodies, and the square had become a lively place where people gathered not just to hear music, but to connect with each other. Children played near the piano, adults shared stories, and even the elders joined in with soft hums or gentle claps, creating a community bound together by the love of music. As the seasons changed, so did the girl's compositions. She began creating pieces that reflected the beauty of nature around the village. The flowing river, the gentle hills, the birds singing in the trees. Each melody captured emotions and moments that words could not fully express. Villagers would pause their daily routines to listen, often stopping in their tracks, mesmerized by the music. The girl's music had become a language that everyone understood, uniting the community in a way that nothing else had. One day, a small group of musicians from a nearby town visited the village. They had heard about the girl's talent and came to listen. When they saw her play, they were amazed at the depth of feeling and skill she had developed. They offered guidance, sharing new techniques and styles that expanded her understanding of the piano. The girl absorbed everything with excitement, eager to learn and grow. She realized that the piano could be more than just a way to entertain. It could be a bridge to the wider world, connecting her village to new experiences and ideas. With their guidance, she began to experiment even more, blending different rhythms and melodies. She composed longer pieces, sometimes telling stories of the village's history, sometimes expressing the simple joys and sorrows of everyday life. Villagers continued to gather, listening in silence, their hearts moved by the music. The piano had become a symbol of hope, creativity, and the power of one person's dedication to inspire change. The girl also began to mentor others, sharing her knowledge with children and adults who wanted to learn. She taught them how to read music, how to position their fingers correctly, and how to feel the emotions behind each note. The lessons were not always easy. Some learners struggled, while others lost interest. But the girl was patient, encouraging each person to try again and celebrating even the smallest achievements. Through her teaching, the village discovered hidden talents, and people who had never imagined themselves as musicians found joy in creating music. Over time, the piano became a part of every village celebration. Festivals, harvests, and community gatherings all included performances by the girl and her students. Music filled the air, and the village became known for its vibrant, joyful atmosphere. Visitors would stop to listen, drawn by the reputation of a small village where a young girl had transformed the community through her passion for music. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a living part of the village, a reminder of the power of persistence, creativity, and shared joy. Even the skeptics, who had once questioned her dedication, could no longer deny the impact she had made. They saw the happiness in the children, the pride in the adults, and the unity that had formed among neighbors. Some joined her lessons, hesitant at first, but soon discovering the joy of learning something new. The piano had not only taught music, but had taught patience, understanding, and the value of supporting one another. The girl's dedication had created ripples that transformed the entire village. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, the girl sat at the piano, playing a soft, reflective melody. The villagers gathered around, sitting quietly, letting the music wash over them. Children rested their heads on their parents' laps. Adults closed their eyes to listen, and elders smiled knowingly. The melody told a story of perseverance, hope, and the simple beauty of life. As the notes lingered in the air, the girl felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She understood that the piano had changed her life, but it had also changed the lives of everyone around her. The girl often reflected on how it all began. A mysterious piano appearing in the village square, a small spark of curiosity, and her courage to approach it. What had started as a simple act of fascination had grown into something extraordinary. She had learned that following one's passion, no matter how uncertain or unconventional, could inspire others and create lasting change. The piano had become a symbol of possibility, reminding everyone that even small actions could ripple outward, touching lives in ways they could never predict. As time passed, the girl continued to compose new pieces, each one reflecting her growth, her experiences, and her dreams. She collaborated with her students, encouraging them to express themselves and create their own music. The village thrived with creativity, laughter, and connection. Music was no longer just a pastime. It was a way of life, a source of pride and joy for everyone who lived there. The piano remained at the heart of the village square, a constant presence and a reminder of the journey they had all shared. It had survived storms, skepticism, and doubt, just as the girl had. Together, they had proven that passion, dedication, and the courage to follow one's dreams could transform not only a person, but an entire community. The girl's story became a legend in the village, inspiring others to pursue their own passions and reminding everyone that change often begins with a single step, a single note, or a single act of courage. One special day, the village organized a festival to celebrate the piano and the girl's achievements. People from nearby towns arrived to witness the music that had transformed the village. The girl performed a grand composition, her fingers moving confidently across the keys, her heart full of emotion. The audience listened in awe, feeling the power of her journey in every note. Children danced, adults clapped, and elders nodded, tears glistening in their eyes. The festival was not just a celebration of music, but a celebration of courage, dedication, and the transformative power of following one's heart. As the festival ended and the sun dipped below the horizon, the girl played one final melody, soft and gentle. The villagers gathered closely, holding hands, letting the music fill the quiet evening air. The piano sound lingered, echoing through the hills, carrying the story of a girl who had changed everything. The village had been transformed, not just by the piano, but by the spirit of curiosity, courage, and passion that the girl had embodied. Music had become a bridge between people, a source of hope, and a reminder that even one person could make a difference. In the quiet that followed, the girl looked around at the smiling faces, the children's laughter, and the peaceful contentment of her neighbors. She realized that the piano had given her more than skill or talent. It had given her a purpose and a way to connect with the world. The village, once ordinary and quiet, was now alive with creativity, unity, and joy. And it had all begun with a single girl who dared to follow her heart, letting her love for music change not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. The piano remained in the square, a symbol of possibility, hope, and the enduring power of one person's courage and passion.